First things first, I'm Jenna Wolfe. This is Nick Wright, and in for Chris Carter this week is Chris Broussard. I'm not good with names, so it's just great that if your last name was Carter, that would help me out even more, but I'll take Broussard.
We have a disproportionate number of Chris's on this show. Chris Canty's on today. Chris Mannix joins the show. Obviously, Chris Broussard, Chris Carter.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good to see you as always.
We're lacking Nicks and Jennas. Is that so? If there's anyone that knows anything about sports named Nick or Jenna, we have an empty seat for you. Anyway, it's great to have you.
Great to be
All
here.
right, let's start this morning. The Giants have one of the most talented, not the most talented wide receiver in the league on their roster. And this morning we are talking about whether that wide receiver is a lock to remain on that roster. Odell Beckham Jr., coming off a season to forget, is front and center with the Giants this morning over his off-the-field behavior. He's looking for a monster contract from New York. Team owner John Mara opened up for the first time since a video of Beckham was released and leaked a few weeks ago, showing Odell with what appeared to be an illicit substance. Mara said he was disappointed in Beckham and then mentioned while they aren't shopping Odell, no one is untouchable. Mara went on to add, quote, I think too often he allows himself to be put in bad situations and needs to use better judgment. And as I've said before, I'm tired of answering questions about Odell's behavior and what the latest incident is. I think we know what we expect of him, and now it's up to him. So, Nick, I'll start with you. Should the Giants really consider trading Odell Beckham Jr.? And let's just say it's not what John Mara said, but he did say now no one is untouchable.
Well, and it is a departure from a lot of the things he said.
Sure.
He opened up the possibility not only of them trading him, but he has now gone back on what he had said earlier, which was, we know Odell's going to get a new contract. We want to give Odell a new contract. Now he seems open to the idea of not giving Odell a new contract, which I think is one of the reasons he's open to the idea possibly of moving Odell, because I don't know how happy Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be if you ask him to play out the 5th year of his rookie deal when he has, despite missing a season, greatly exceeded any possible expectations for production in his rookie deal. So the question is, should they be open to trading Odell? Yes. Personally, he might be my favorite player in football. I would be open to trading Odell. But if I trade Odell Beckham, I have to be honest about who I am, what I'm doing, what my future holds. I have to also field calls on Eli Manning, and I have to assuredly take a quarterback with the first pick. If you are trading your best player, who is still young, who is far and away your most talented player on your offense, an offense that the only reason it has had any type of life the last 4 years, last year it didn't have life, he wasn't there, is because of him, well, then you are, in addition to trading JPP, you are tearing this thing down and rebuilding anew, which maybe is the right move. So would I be open to trading Odell? Yeah. I would listen to calls. You want to give me a first and a third for Odell Beckham? I'll listen to that. I will listen to those offers. But if I am going to do it, then what I am saying is we are full on rebuild. If Eli stays, it's only as a mentor. We are drafting a quarterback, and we are starting fresh with the new GM and the new head coach.
Well, you mentioned you start off by saying this is a departure for John Mara. And speaking of departures, remember with Ben McAdoo, he gave him the vote of confidence. Then he comes out and says nothing's guaranteed. Right. And next thing you know, McAdoo and the GM, Jerry Reese, are fired. So I'm with you. I don't think this is – if some people should not take this as they're trying to get rid of Odell, or even that they're looking to get rid of Odell. He said, John Mara, I hope it does not come to trading him. But this was a warning to Odell to straighten up. And I get it. I felt like John Mara came off as more exasperated than angry.
Sure.
Like, and if I'm an owner of an NFL team, and I've got a young kid, no matter how talented he is, but he's obviously immature. He's had these issues that I have to deal with, and now he's asking me to be the highest paid player in the league, or among the highest paid players in the league.
Certainly the highest paid wide receiver.
At his position.
Yep.
I get where Mara's coming from. I want more maturity. And look, to me, the Giants hold all the cards. I don't have to get you this long-term contract this year. You may have forfeited that option with your behavior, which we saw on video. I could let you play out this season and then franchise you if I have to. I could let you play out this season, see how well you play coming off the injury, and if you don't show the maturity I want to see, then trade you when your value is higher than it is right now. It's still high, but you are coming off injury
selling
too.
Low.
Yeah,
you would be coming off injury and controversy. Even if he still has a lot of trade value, right now as we sit here this moment, Odell has the least trade value he's ever had.
Yes.
Since he's become a star.
No question. So I like what John Mara said. I don't think it was, mean-spirited. I think it was, like I said, exasperation. And he hopes clearly that OBJ straightens up. And you got a chance to straighten up.
This isn't a reaction to this latest video. This is just a reaction and a departure from what we heard John Mara said last year, or the end of last season, which was, yes, Odell's going to get a contract. Now it just doesn't seem as sort of a locked-in thing. What I'm curious about is it sounds a little bit like your tone has changed just a bit. I feel like if we had asked you last year, you would have said, no, you don't change the best player in your team, and somehow that has changed.
Well, they have the number 2 pick of the draft is what's changed. They have the opportunity, if they want, they have a new head coach, a new GM, and the number 2 pick of the draft. So if they want to remake their entire team, he is their most tradable, best tradable asset. So that is why I'd be open to it. Also, did you say this is not a reaction to the video? Because I think it is absolutely.
Yeah, that's the final straw.
I think it's absolutely.
It's the final straw, but it is not a reaction just to this, because if this happened to a different player, it'd be a slap on the wrist or a warning, but you can't say this is just a warning to you. It's not that he hasn't heard warnings. Didn't he meet with ownership last year?
No, but it's a warning that now, it's to a point where we may consider moving you. I mean, he said, he was asked, will he be back in 2018 with the Giants? And he said, I can't answer that one way or the other right now.
The only things that have changed, as far as we know publicly, since John Mara said he's getting a new contract, and what he said this weekend was the video, and then also the other story, and now this has not gotten the attention, but Odell's being sued for millions of dollars because someone allegedly got beat up in his house, not by Odell, and again, that's the type of thing where you hear it and you're like, man, this guy going after an athlete for his money. But I would imagine John Mayer's like another headline, another thing where, rightly or wrongly, you are being talked about for the wrong reasons. Now, so would I be open to it? Yeah, I'd be open to it. I do think there is a way that Odell and the Giants can both get what they want out of this situation. And the Giants want to protect themselves and give Odell more incentive to correct the behavior. And Odell wants his contract. I would absolutely come to Odell Beckham before training camp with a new contract, with a contract that makes him the highest paid highest paid wide receiver in the league. But I would put in that contract clauses such as CeCe alluded to the fact that Odell very well might already be in the substance abuse program where he's randomly drug tested. I would put in that contract, hey, man, you ever miss a game due to suspension, a drug suspension, all the guarantees in your contract void. The Kansas City Chiefs had a contract like that with Dwayne Bowe. It wasn't exactly that, but he got popped on a weed charge, and it allowed them to void a lot of his guarantees. Now, he obviously wasn't the player Odell is, so usually great players don't sign deals with those types of parameters.
But also great players don't always have the history that
exactly right. So
he may not want to sign something like that.
Do you think he would sign something like that?
I think
because he seems to not be able to control himself.
Here's the thing: he's put himself in a position where he's going to have to accept that that's the offer I'm going to make if I'm going to do it now.
Exactly.
I can wait and see what you do this year, see if you show maturity, see if you play at the same level, and then we don't have to worry about those types of things.
The Giants have the hammer here. They've got an $8.5 million, him under contract for $8.5 million this year. Then they can franchise him next year. They could theoretically franchise him again. So they have but what they don't want to do is alienate their best player. What they don't want to do is have a guy who is the only reason, in my eyes, Eli Manning did not play himself out of the league 4 years ago when he led the league in interceptions at a 69 quarterback rating was the arrival of Odell Beckham. What they would like is Beckham to be happy and want to be a Giant. The Giants like the fact that when the NFL does a Super Bowl commercial, that they don't just have Eli to be involved in it. They're like, hey, Eli with Odell. They like some of the profile that comes along with him. What you said, Odell can't control himself. That's further than I would go with it. But what I will say is this. Odell clearly has shown a propensity towards self-destructive behavior. And CC mentioned it when he referred to Lawrence Taylor. Said the greatest Giant ever wasn't able to save himself from himself, and now, 20 years post-career, is still dealing with some of these struggles. I don't think Odell's struggles are on that level, but I do think that if I'm the Giants, I say, Odell, we'll give you your money, but we are protecting ourselves here. Because the offseason where you knew you were supposed to get your money, you've still shown up in the news because you're allegedly laying in bed next to a model doing drugs.
That's why it's a risk to give him the money.
That's what I say. But this is also
they have to right now. And as far as him being happy, look, he has to play well. It does him no good to go out there and mope and not play well.
No, but he
needs to play well.
Oh, I don't think it's about him not playing well. I think it's about him playing. I think it's about would he hold out? Would he? I don't think it's if he shows up, is he going to go half speed? He's too good of a player, and football's too dangerous of a game. The question is, would he hold out? Would he say, you guys said I'm getting my money? He's going to say, some old video came out. That's all. I've never been arrested. I've never this, and now I don't get my money.
But he has to know that his stock is as low as it is right now, and the only way to change that is two things: stay out of trouble and get on the field and play well. And I think those are the only two things he has in his favor. The other big story this week in March Madness, it continues. We're going to discuss that next on First Things First. NCAA tournament time, new topic. And what a state of goodness offered up last night. Kansas punched their ticket to the Final Four with an overtime win over Duke. If you can point to a moment that might have sealed it, this one, freshman Wendell Carter getting called for the foul and fouling out with 2:49 left in overtime. Looked like he set his foot. Maybe he didn't. Refs felt otherwise. Kansas wins. Let's break this down a beat here, Nick. Did the refs cost Duke a win? I know it's hard.
I don't want to say the refs cost Duke the game. Duke had a 3-point lead with 30 seconds left in regulation, and they end up losing the game. That's on them.
Yep.
Duke, to me, was the more talented team, and they let Kansas stay right there. I know Kansas was the 1 seed. I felt like Duke was the best team in their region.
They have more talent.
What you had heard, if you follow Kansas basketball all year long, people saying this was Bill Self's least talented team, even though, once again, they win the Big 12, they win the conference tournament, they're a 1 seed. I don't feel like you can say the refs cost Duke the game. What I do feel like you can say is, if that call goes the other way, in that moment, Wendell Carter Jr. had finally gotten it going. He scored 7 points at the end of regulation. He was 0 for 5 with 7 minutes left in the game. He finishes the game making 3 of 4 shots. He seemed to really, for the first time all game, be in a rhythm.
Yep.
Would have been Duke ball with the lead in overtime. And so I do think this was an enormous call. And the part about this call that I hate, and I always hate on the block charge calls, but particularly this one, because it seemed like he was more set than the vast majority of kids that get the charge call. The ref's delay. When the ref waits long enough to take 2 steps without signaling, I can't help but feel like the ref is not reacting to the play, but deciding what he thinks should happen. I'm not alleging any type of malfeasance or whatever, but when it's not your gut reaction, it just feels like he's doing the math. All right, which way do I want this to go? And I don't know that that's what he was doing, but I know as a fan, as a viewer, that's how I felt watching it. And so when you add to it, that's Wendell Carter's 5th foul. He's now done for the game. That was their big advantage on Kansas, supposedly, was Carter and Bagley down low, and Carter had got it going. I understand why Duke fans, who, by the way, are not used to not having the whistles go their way, why Duke fans this morning be very upset.
At the very least, when the ref pauses like that, it makes you feel like he's not certain. Whether he's thinking which way the call should go, he's not certain of what he wants to do. I think that was definitely a charge.
Yeah.
I don't think it's up for debates. People are talking about Carter's left or right leg was moving a little bit. Nobody is motionless when you draw a charge. That's not the rule, that you have to be absolutely still or there'd never be a charge call. But that was a terrible call. I'm with you, though, Nick. I can't say this cost Duke the game. I get it why Duke fans would be upset. That was a critical play. They would have had the ball. Instead, the kid goes to the free throw line, hits 1 of 2.
Yep.
They tie the game. There also was the talk about the out-of-bounds play that was
late
reversed.
in the game, they ended up reviewing it. That's the play I hate more than any play in basketball, where the ref could have called a foul on Kansas, decides, I'm not going to call a foul on Kansas, I'll just award Duke the ball. But then it goes to replay. You can't replay the foul fact, the fact that the Kansas player takes the Duke's player's legs out from underneath him, and on super slow-mo replay, you see it goes off the Duke kid's fingertips. And on that one, Chris, people are like, well, Kansas didn't score on the play anyway. No, but it would have been Duke free throws going the other way, or they would have had 4 more seconds. Like, Duke had a tough whistle against them throughout the night, particularly in overtime.
Yeah, but as you said, up 3, 30 seconds left in regulation, you got to win that game.
Grayson Allen almost won it.
Yeah, he put in the shot.
That ball went everywhere but the net.
Yeah,
basically.
that was about as in and out as it gets. But yeah, no, at the end of the day, Duke has to look itself in the mirror. And look, a game is 40 minutes plus. In this case, 45 minutes. So there are a lot of things that happen even after, the free throw. The free throw on the Wendell Carter call only tied the game. So you still had a chance. Obviously, you lost Carter. That's what makes it worse, is that it was a foul out, too.
Right.
That's what kills you.
What kills you is that
foul,
and he was hampered by foul trouble the whole game.
Yeah.
I mean, he was supposed to be, he's their second best player. He's going to be a top 10 pick if he leaves. And that's where I felt terribly for the guy, is that's the last moment of college basketball for him, probably.
And that's the toughest part with these things when these guys are seniors. And let's talk about Grayson Allen for a second, because he's one of the other stories to come out of this game. We won't see that very wholesome play of Grayson Allen. How do you think his career will be remembered?
I got to be honest, the first thing that comes to my mind is the dirty type of play that he played. I hate to say it because he's a college kid, but the tripping of players, the kicking players, this year, sticking out his backside to hit a player, it just got on my nerves. It's one thing to happen once, maybe twice over the course of a 4-year career, but he seemed like he was too emotional. He couldn't control himself. He was better this year, but that's what I remember. And secondly, as a sophomore, he looked great.
Yeah.
He's coming off that wonderful, I got to give him props on this, as a freshman, the 16 points to,
in the national
lead him is
championship game.
too strong, but to play well,
Sure,
second to Tyus Jones, and help them win that national title over Wisconsin, huge. Comes back as a sophomore, has a great season, 21 points a game, shoots well from 3, well from the field. And in his last 2 years, I get it, they brought in some freshman stars.
No, but his shooting percentage went down. He wasn't as good. Listen,
he was looking like an NBA, maybe late lottery pick at one point.
Absolutely.
Now.
Tell me now.
It's a mid-second round pick.
Last year I was hearing late first round, second round type pick. Now he's probably a second round pick.
Mid-second round pick.
If that.
I have no sympathy for Grayson Allen. And it is a weird spot. I had Duke in my bracket. I bet on Duke to win. And I found myself, when that shot went up from Grayson, I was rooting for him to miss.
Were you?
Absolutely, 100%. He didn't. The way he has conducted himself for these last 3 years at Duke, I know he's been there 4, but the last 3 years when this all really got going, he did not deserve to have the glory of a buzzer beater to go to the Final Four. Like, you can call that petty, you can call that mean-spirited. I'm just being honest about my emotions.
Petty and mean-spirited. The stuff he was doing.
I mean, I hated, and I knew that if Duke made the Final Four, especially on a play like that, the narrative would have been some Grayson Allen redemption story when he hasn't redeemed himself for anything. He's never fixed the behavior. No. He's never been able to control himself. And he constantly gets chance after chance after chance. We asked, did the refs cost Duke this game? Man, not more than Grayson Allen did. Grayson Allen was terrible in this basketball game. He was 3 for 13, including a meaningless 3 at the very end of the game. He was 2 for 12 through 44 and a half minutes of the basketball game. So how will I remember Grayson Allen? As a justifiably hateable Duke player who's one of the dirtier players I've seen in the last few years of college basketball. That's all I remember Grayson Allen.
All right, we'll take a break. Coming up, just how much will Steph Curry's injury impact the Warriors' title chances? Break that down next. First things first. Time for some stories to start your morning tournament madness. Villanova advanced to the Final Four with a win over Texas Tech. The Wildcats have won their 4 tournament games by an average of over 18 points. God, I hope I didn't just jinx them. Nick, is Nova looking like the favorite to win it all here?
The only piece of evidence that Villanova won't win the championship is that I picked them to win the championship. And I'm on a tough stretch the last couple of years. I mean, they looked like the best team going into the tournament. They've looked like the best team each round of the tournament. They haven't had a single game in question in the tournament. Like, to me, they have clearly been the best team. Yeah, they look like the heavy favorite in my eyes.
I was with you. I picked Villanova as well. I'm not going to predict anything at this point in this tournament. I wouldn't be shocked if Loyola wins it, if Michigan wins it. Anything could happen. But I love Jalen Brunson, love his game, never seems to take a bad shot. Great floor general. And this kid, DiVincenzo,
yes.
Dante DiVincenzo, his game, I love this kid. I mean, high flyer, can shoot the three. He has had some tremendous moments in this tournament. So they're an exciting team to watch. I would like to see them get all the way to the final.
Before the year, Jay Wright came on, and one of the players he specifically pointed out was Dante DiVincenzo. He's been awesome.
Yeah.
He's been awesome.
All right, moving on to the other side of the bracket, the feel-good story of the tournament, Loyola Chicago heading to the Final Four with a win over Kansas State. So it's Kansas and Villanova and Michigan and Loyola Chicago. Nick, what are the Ramblers' real chances here?
I mean, I think they got a decent shot. This is a team that was the best team in not a small major, but a legitimate mid-major conference, Missouri Valley. I think now they've won 14 consecutive games. They absolutely have the feeling of a team of destiny, winning the first 3 tournament games the way they did, and then putting a complete game together and dominating K-State. Like, they got great guard play. Michigan's a favorite over them, but would you be shocked if they beat Michigan? I wouldn't be shocked at all if they beat Michigan.
Not at this point. Look, it'd be nice to see a mid-major finally do it. You know, Butler came close. George Mason was in the Final Four. It would be nice to see them really cap it off. One thing that stood out to me when they played K-State, they were far more skilled than Kansas State. You would expect the bigger school, the major school versus the mid-major would have more skill. K-State was more athletic, more physical and tougher, but skill-wise, Loyola shot it better. They handled the ball better. They passed better, and that's why they won.
All right, to the NBA now. The Trailblazers beat the Thunder last night. Melo struggled, only scoring 6 points on 3 from 13. Chris, does it worry you seeing the Thunder struggle against tough competition?
No, I still, despite what happened yesterday and despite their struggles against Portland all year, if I had to pick a third team in the West behind Golden State and Houston, I probably would pick OKC because of their firepower. Now, Melo, I need you to step up. The last 2 months, Melo's given them 13 points a game on 37% shooting. We saw yesterday he misses open threes. He turns the ball over with 7 seconds left. He's got to step up. This is a chance for you to win, not a title necessarily, but deep in the playoffs for one of the few times in your career. Get it done and give Russell and George some support.
Here's the thing. Melo's Syracuse guy. I love Melo. I feel like Melo had been somewhat unfairly maligned throughout his career. We're like, he can't win. I mean, he was the best player in the conference finalists early in his career in Denver. But where he is now, I understand they got to start him. I don't know that they have to finish with him. I don't know Melo is one of their best 5 guys late in games. You want to give him the courtesy start. You want to make sure he's on the court when Russ isn't, maybe when Russ and Paul George are both resting, so you can try to run some offense through him, fine. But he's a defensive liability who right now is not making up for it on the offensive end. Like another Syracuse guy, Jeremy Grant might be a better option for them late in games. I hate that that's the case. I thought Melo could be a good third option on a team, but he seems to have deteriorated massively from just 1 year ago. I can't quite figure it out.
Well, and he's playing so much differently as he's off the ball and, catch and shoot.
Finally, Cavs beat the Nets yesterday behind a solid performance from Kevin Love. He had 20 points, 15 rebounds in the win. How about this? Cleveland now 4-0 since Kevin Love returned to the lineup. Chris Broussard, how good have the Cavs been since Love's return, and is it because Love is always the answer?
That was good.
Thank you.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and act like Kevin Love is Karl Malone. Okay, he's not. Okay, he's not an all-time great power forward by any stretch of the imagination. But he has become woefully underrated, I think. People act like Kevin Love is a scrub. Kevin Love is a 20-point, 10-rebound machine. Almost guaranteed to do that when he is the definitive second option, and that's what he is now that Kyrie's gone, now that Isaiah's gone. Isaiah thought he was 1A. All right, so Kevin Love got moved back to 3. As the second option, he gives it to you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And remember, when he was in Minnesota, I know the teams never made the playoffs, but I'm going to say had they been in the East, they would have at least made it his last year there. He was putting up numbers we had not really seen consistently. I mean, a 26-point, 20-rebound game here and there. That we had not seen really since Moses Malone.
I think he averaged 15 rebounds a game.
One year he may have. I mean, he
13.5.
had some huge numbers. So Kevin Love is a very good second option, particularly in the Eastern Conference for LeBron James.
Listen, the Cavs, I know that everyone's written the story on the Cavs 5 times, despite the fact that you want to know what this Nets game was? The first game they played all year with the team they're going to have going into the playoffs. And by the way, they still didn't have Korver. Right. Jeff Green didn't play. And if you care about Jetty Osman, he wasn't there. And the coach wasn't there. And it was still the closest facsimile to the team they will have going into the playoffs because they hadn't been playing. With Love been injured since the trade deadline. Then Rodney Hood had been injured. Obviously, Korver had been out. So, of course, they're going to be better. Like, what we have right now, and I'm glad people are maybe eventually coming over to see this, is that LeBron's going to be playing at this A-plus level throughout the postseason. Now he's got a legitimate second option who makes life so much easier on Rodney Hood, George Hill. Like, you could see, I was at the game last night, so a lot of the shots that the camera didn't show, I could see. LeBron's excitement level when Hill and Hood made plays was so much greater than when, for example, Kevin Love did. And that's not because he doesn't like Kevin Love. It's because he knows what he's going to get from Kevin Love. It's exactly what you said. He's consistent. But for the Cavs to win a championship, which is obviously what LeBron's only real goal is, he needs Hill and Hood to both play great. And Love spaces the floor better for them, makes it to where they don't have to be a second option. They can just hit some open shots. And this was the second game all year. Well, I'm sorry, the first game all year that Hill, Hood, and Love have all played well. Yep. And so now and it's just the second game all year that Hill and Hood have played well together. Like, that is offensively the best version of the Cavs. Now, defensively, they still need to be much better.
Well, here's a key for them. Kevin Love has shot 48% from 3 since he's been back. They need Larry Nance to protect the rim because you obviously lose something defensively with Love, but if you have Larry Nance in there protecting the rim to some degree, then that helps you defensively and Love can stretch the floor.
What's the knock on Love? He's done nothing but contribute before he hurt his hand and from the first day he came back. So why, you said people have called him a scrub or whatever. Why?
Well, I think, one, when he was there as the third option with Kyrie, then he was inconsistent. I mean, you never knew what you were getting night in, night out from him. But I say that's the life of a third option. I mean, a third option is going to be inconsistent. And then defensively, he doesn't give it to you defensively. So when he's not playing big offensively, then what is he out there for? That's kind of the feeling.
All right, to the Warriors now in a range of emotion on Friday. So they got Steph Curry back on the court after that ankle sprain. Thrilled for like a hot second until they lost Steph Curry, again, this time with an MCL sprain. He's out at least 3 weeks, the same injury he suffered in the 2016 playoffs. Head coach Steve Kerr spoke last night on Steph's timetable to return.
No, there's no way he's playing the first round. And we also know that Steph has a history of coming back strong from injuries. So there's a good chance if all goes well, he comes back during the playoffs at some point, and we're at full steam.
Mentally, for me, staying positive, staying upbeat. Hopefully, I prove what Coach said was wrong and put myself in a position to get back as soon as possible. But right now, who knows? Just try to do my job in the rehab process and get back as soon as I can.
Chris, Steve Kerr didn't seem overly concerned. Maybe he is, and he was just showing it, but he seemed very casual. Like, yeah, we'll get through the first round, and we'll have him back for the second round. Ain't no problem. How worried should the Warriors be?
They should be worried. They should be worried. Now, look, whoever they play in the first round, they're going to be the favorite, and they should be. You got Kevin Durant, second best player in the world, and a really good supporting cast, to say the least, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. But they're a different team without Steph. I mean, the numbers bear it out. They're 13-8 without Steph, and with Durant, with 13-8 without Steph. With Steph, they win by like 18 points a game. Without him, they win by less than 3. Mm-hmm. With Steph, they play at the fastest pace in the league. Without him, they play at the 27th fastest pace, comparable to Utah in the league. So they're an entirely different team. And whoever you face in the first round in the West is not going to be a cakewalk. Utah will be tough. What if right now they would play Minnesota, the 2-7 matchup, and Minnesota with Jimmy Butler. Now, recently, Minnesota beat Golden State. Steph didn't play, and neither did Jimmy Butler. And Minnesota beat them. Now, Minnesota coming back with Butler would be a tough matchup. But I could say, OKC. I think they'd hate to see OKC without Steph.
We can't do this in the first round.
You don't think that
Here's what I
think.
Here's what I think. I think I've heard for 2 years, since the finals, Kevin Durant might be the best player in the world. If not, he's clearly the second best player in the world. Here's also what I think. Klay Thompson's second greatest shooter ever and one of the 15 best players in the league. Draymond Green's the defending defensive player of the year. We cannot say for Golden State that, now they can lose in the first round. This team, hold on.
You don't think you saying it's an excuse we're making for them, or it's just not possible that they could lose in the first round?
I'm saying it would be an enormous indictment on Kevin Durant if this team cannot get out of the first round. We saw this team, Steph, Klay, Draymond, Iggy, Sean Livingston, and rotate a player at center, plus David West, right? Win 73 games. We saw that team win a title. Flipping out Steph for KD shouldn't go, because that's all you'd be doing in this scenario. Yep. All those guys are still there. Harrison Barnes as well. I'm leaving him out, but he was a guy that was much maligned.
Yeah.
Their key players are all there, and you would be flipping out Steph, who the general consensus I've been told is KD's better than Steph. That KD's the second best player, not Steph. That KD's this two-way amazing force, which, by the way, he is. I'm not discounting any of that. I do think KD has as good of an argument to be the second best player as anyone in the league, along with Steph and James Harden. But we can't all of a sudden. I watched LeBron in 2015 lose his second best player, right? They lost Kevin Love. They then beat a 50-win Bulls team. He then doesn't really have Kyrie for the third round against the Hawks, and they sweep a 60-win Hawks team. Like, if Steph's out for the playoffs, right, if he were to be out, listen, he's never cleared, then it is not an indictment on KD if they don't win a championship, right? If Steph's not back and they play the Rockets, then I'm not going to be like, KD, what are you doing?
It's not a full indictment as if losing in the first round would be, but it is somewhat of an indictment.
It ain't great for him, but I happen to think the Rockets are an extraordinary team that could give even the full-strength Warriors trouble. So I wouldn't crush them if they lose without Steph. But you can't lose in the first round. And by the way, you can't lose in the second round either. You will still, no matter who you play in the first and second round, you put the best player on the court, your best player versus their best player, Golden State. Your second best player versus their second best player, Golden State. Your third best player versus their third best player, Golden State. No matter who they play.
But we've seen that's not, I get what you're doing, but that's not how we can do it. Because if we had done that with the Cavs Warriors, at a certain points, we would have said LeBron's the best, Kyrie arguably better than their second best player, Kevin, you know what I mean? But you're right. Look, KD, this is why it's good they got KD. Okay, because and you and I have talked about it. I have said KD going there, I had no problem with it, but I felt like it did take something away from Steph's game. Like before KD got there, it felt like every other night Steph was putting on some type of light show and doing something miraculous and memorable that we all had to see. Not as much with KD because you just don't have to. But the question is, would Steph physically have been able to carry this Warriors team for the next several years? And the answer appears to be no. So it's good that they were able to get KD, but now he has to get it done. Thing is, they're a much different team without Steph, and that affects Draymond and Klay. Klay Thompson by himself, I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. But by himself, top 15 player in the league, I'm not so sure. I like him defensively. He's a tremendous shooter. He can do things off the bounce that people don't give him credit for. but I don't think he's a top 15 player by himself. And Draymond definitely isn't.
If after the Warriors lost to the Cavs, if Sam Presti had pulled off a trade, Russell Westbrook for Clay, Draymond, Iggy, Sean Livingston, David West, go play with that team with Kevin Durant. Guess what? They'd be the damn favorites in the NBA. Like, Kate, I understand the Rockets look really good. The Cavs are gelling. I get all that. But there should be no level of concern. If KD is as good as I believe he is, as the world believes he is, as he believes he is, that there should be no concern that this team can't get out of the first round.
Do you? But, okay, I get what you're saying. But look at the West. What if Kawhi, and that's a big if, but what if he comes back for San Antonio? Butler was back for Minnesota. New Orleans has played great basketball. Are you going to tell me? I get what you're saying. Like, this is the moment where KD has to step up.
Yes.
And get it done. I'm with you. Because people hold LeBron to that standard all the time.
And KD's going to finish his career as one of the 12 greatest players in the history of the sport if all continues on this track. Like, one of the greatest scorers ever. He's now a two-way player. You're going to have home court in the first round. You're going to play a team that, for a reason, is the 7 seed. It's not like it's going to take 50 wins to get a...
Do you think it won't be a tough matchup?
I think that you're going to play a good team that you should beat in 5 games. If you have the best player on the court, you have the second best shooter ever, you have the defensive player of the year, you shouldn't need. What they have right now in Golden State is an embarrassment of riches. You should be able to get out of the first round with 3 Hall of Famers. Every other team in the league would kill people to get 3 Hall of Famers.
2 of them are Hall of Famers because they kept winning.
Wait, who's more replaceable, Steph Curry or Kevin Durant?
Durant to me.
It's weird. I think Durant's better, but I think Durant's more replaceable.
Interesting. All right, coming up, let's talk some football. Is Aaron Rodgers about to make things oh so difficult for the Packers? Next on First Things First.
Go.
Welcome back to First Things First. We're now joined by Super Bowl champ Chris Kane, just going over his workout regimen with us.
Yeah, listen, Jenna, it's easy to do a little bit every day than to go to the gym and try to work out for 2 or 3 hours.
Literally my mantra in life.
Exactly.
Like, that's it. That's all I've got.
Do a little bit. Rome wasn't built in a day. Just a little bit every day.
Speak for yourself.
Stop.
I'm having trouble doing it every day.
Yeah, I mean, listen. And we were talking like Chris is in an odd spot as a former pro athlete who was so big as a player, so big and strong that if he stops working out, it ruined. You know what I mean? It ruins him. I stop working out. It's like, oh, you never started. You're fine. The only negative of me not working out is listening to Jenna criticize me for it. But
every day.
Whatever. I'll deal.
Yes.
No problem.
And you continue to do that.
I'll deal with the remote, right?
Exactly.
Bet you didn't know this, but quarterback contracts are all the rage these days. That and gaming consoles, apparently. Jimmy G got over $130 million for 5 wins. Kirk Cousins got $84 million guaranteed. Case Keenum got $36 million for having me as a fan. Next up, Aaron Rodgers. ESPN's Adam Schefter implied Rodgers might not do the Packers any favors in negotiating an extension. Why? Well, they did get rid of his quarterback coach in Alex Van Pelt, and they did get rid of his favorite target in Jordy Nelson. So, Chris Kenny, I ask you, should Rodgers do the Packers any favors when it comes to contract negotiations?
No way.
No.
Why should he do them any favors when they haven't done him any favors? I mean, look at the supporting cast that he's had to work with this past decade. He's only had 1 top 10 defense. That was the group that went to the Super Bowl in 2010. He's only had 1 top 10 rushing attack. That was 2013, Eddie Lacy's first year before he ate himself out of town. So if you look at what they've put around Aaron Rodgers, Ted Thompson did not do a good job of building the roster. And you're not taking advantage of having the most skilled quarterback our game has ever seen. So it doesn't make sense for Aaron Rodgers to give them any kind of hometown discount. I'm not on board with that. This is going to be a record-breaking deal. It's going to be over $30 million on an average annual value. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised to see something outside of the box from Aaron Rodgers in terms of how they tie his compensation to the salary cap. Because if there was any player in the NFL that warrants that kind of contract, it would be Aaron Rodgers.
So I want to explain to the audience what Chris is talking about, and it's not just like a crazy theory. This is something that's been floated, that we've heard that it might be tied to the salary cap. And what that means is, here's what Aaron Rodgers makes: 18% of the cap. So for simplicity's sake, if the cap's $180 million, so 18% of that, he's going to make $32 million and change a year, right? Like, and then, by the way, when it goes up to $200 million, 18% of that is $36 million. So that way it escalates as the cap goes up, and we've never seen a player do that. Players' salaries are just static.
That's the NBA model.
The NBA model, okay, that's a great point, actually. The NBA model for the Superstar Max contract is it's 35% of the cap,
35%,
depending on how long you've invested in the league. Here is, right, yeah.
Well, the football has wanted more like NBA-type contracts, so maybe this could be the start.
So here's the thing, and CeCe and I got into this when the Jordy Nelson deal happened. And I said, if there's any player in the league that deserves a LeBron James-style deference from their organization, it's Aaron Rodgers. And CeCe pounded the table and said, basically, that's not how it's done in the NFL. You don't ask the players about personnel decisions. And I get it. I understand that Aaron Rodgers isn't watching film. Coach Mangini talked about how Ty Law would want to be a part of the game plan. And he would say, okay, the meeting's at 8 a.m. You're welcome to show up. And Ty would say, I don't want to do that. Okay, I get that's not how it's done. But there are consequences to every action. And one of the consequences might be Aaron Rodgers said, okay, you guys don't want me to be treated as if I'm a equal member of the front office? Then guess what front offices worry about? Salary caps. Guess what players worry about? Getting my money. It's your job to figure out the cap. It's your job to put the team around me. It's my job to execute every ounce of leverage I have to get the most money possible. Now, maybe he would feel that way either way, but I don't think the moves they've made, the removal of Alex Van Pelt, moving on from Jordy Nelson, have made Aaron Rodgers feel like, oh, yeah, hometown discount, here I come. It's illogical to me that he would.
Look, am I going to be mad or disappointed if Aaron Rodgers gives them a break? Because, look, he said he wants to finish his career in Green Bay. He obviously loves it there. If a couple $1 million is separating an offer from another team in Green Bay and he stays, I won't be mad at him. But I am with you guys on not giving him a break because this new regime, they've been active in free agency. I like the Jimmy Graham signing. I like getting Muhammad Wilkerson. But they've been all business. They didn't talk to Rodgers when they got rid of his quarterback coach. And from what the reports say, they talked to him after they decided to get rid of Jordy Nelson. Not before. After they decided. I don't know if it was before they actually cut him and pulled the trigger.
I mean, they had made the decision.
They had made the decision. They had made the decision. So they're dealing strictly business, okay? We're not getting emotional. No tie, no sentimental ties. We got to cut you, Jordy. Bye. And it may hurt a little bit, but it's helped them, I think, in getting a couple of good players. They cleared the room to get Muhammad Wilkerson. So now Aaron needs to take the same tack. Okay, so it's all business. All right, don't worry. Don't look for me to be all lovey-dovey and, hey, you've been here so long. Again, for his personal sake, if he wants to stay there for a little less, okay. But be business-like with these guys. And I do think he will because he's seen how they're working.
Treated him a little differently. Would you be okay with it? Are you for giving a team a hometown discount?
No, I'm not for giving a team a discount.
That's what I'm picking up on.
I'm with the players on this one. I'm not going to do that.
If you just wanted to be somewhere and you loved it where you were playing, would you give a little bit of a discount?
I mean, quality of life matters, so I'm not going to completely dismiss that aspect of it. But when you're in Aaron Rodgers' position and you see what the organization has done and their approach this offseason, I mean, you can't fault Aaron Rodgers for exercising every bit of leverage that he possibly can. And then you start hearing some of the sound bites coming out of that organization talking about we're going to do what's in the best interest of the Green Bay Packers long term. Mark Murphy making those comments down at the owners' meeting this weekend in Orlando. When you hear stuff like that, Aaron Rodgers is like, okay, if that's how we're going to play this game, then this is exactly what I'm going to do. And outside of every other position, quarterback is the one position in the NFL where you can dictate to the organization.
And I want to remind the audience something because the audience always seems to take management's side in this thing. I've never understood this about sports fans. The vast majority of us don't own a business. The vast majority of us aren't management. We are labor, yet when it comes to sports, fans are always pro-management as opposed to pro-labor. The owners locked the players out Why? Because they did not want the salary cap to grow too much. They did not want the players to have 52, 54, 56% of total revenue. Guess what? You could pay Aaron Rodgers $35 million a year, still put players around him. If the salary cap were $220 million, the players would love for the salary cap to be $220 million. What we see in pro sports all the time, the NBA and the NFL particularly, is the owners fight and claw to depress the salary cap and then cry poor to the players. Yeah. Then say, oh, can you take a little less money? We want to put a winner around you. We want to put good teammates around you. Okay, you know how you can do that? Don't lock us out to get it to 48%. Let it be 51% of football revenue. Let it be 54% of total revenue. Then we can pay everybody. Like, you don't get to fight to have the salary cap low and then cry poverty when the salary cap being low prevents you from being able to put a winner on the field.
If Aaron Rodgers only has one Super Bowl appearance, to your point, Nick, about the team around him, that's franchise malpractice by Mark Murphy and the Green Bay Packers.
No question.
That's a good point. All right, Chris, stick around. Coming up, could the Giants really move on from Odell? It's our top story this morning. It's next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First with Chris Canty. The latest wrinkle in the Odell Beckham Jr. saga involves the team owner himself, as in, the man who owns the team, as in, the man who will have final say over whether Odell gets the gigantic contract that he's seeking from the Giants. Odell coming off a pretty disappointing year. Injuries, on the field antics, off the field distractions. Team owner John Mara opened up for the first time since a video of Odell was leaked a few weeks ago, showing the star wideout with what appeared to be an illicit substance. John Mara said he was disappointed in Beckham and then mentioned while they aren't shopping Odell, quote, no one is untouchable. Mara went on to add this: I think too often he allows himself to be put in bad situations and needs to use better judgment. As I've said before, I'm tired of answering questions about Odell's behavior and what the latest incident is. I think he knows what we expect of him, and now it's up to him. So, Chris Canty, should the Giants really consider dealing Odell Beckham Jr.? You know this team pretty well.
Yeah, you know what? We had this conversation on my radio show, shameless plug, Humpty Canty on 98.7 FM here in New York.
So good. Where can I buy that radio?
Great listen.
But we had this conversation last year when the Giants had to make the decision on Odell's fifth-year option. And we were saying, if you're going to give him the fifth-year option, you might as well extend him and get rid of the distraction that is, when are you going to pay Odell a long-term contract extension? And, oh, by the way, Nick, you know this, if you pay him sooner, it's going to be cheaper.
Right.
And now we're seeing Odell, he's asking for around $20 million a year on average annual value on a contract extension. It's probably going to be over $60 million guaranteed based on what we saw from the Mike Evans deal. So that's a lot of money. And when you start talking about Odell embarrassing the owner, and we're not just talking about one instance. You can go back to the boat trip a couple of years ago before the wild card playoff game in Green Bay. You saw what happened in Philadelphia after the touchdown celebration. That was a terrible look, and that made headlines on every back page in New York. So when you have this now, the video come out, and he's positioning himself for trying to get a contract extension coming off of a season-ending injury against the Chargers at home in the fifth game of the season, it puts a lot of pressure on this Giants organization that has publicly taken a position that Odell will be a Giant for life. So when you keep embarrassing the owner, it's going to be hard for you to get your money if you're Odell Beckham, even though you've given historic production in your first few years in the league.
Would you consider trading him?
Absolutely. I think it has to be a conversation.
Now, you had said that you had been told he won't step on the field, though, this year without a contract extension, right?
Yeah, I heard that from Jordan Renan, which is an insider, one of the people that we work with our radio station, and also Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network is also reporting that he won't step on the field and play this year without a contract extension. Now, Odell stepped out last year on a $1.8 million contract, the fourth year of his rookie deal, and played. He should have been paid 10 times that, but he went out there. The fact that he got hurt and ended his season, he's going to be looking for that financial security. So I can understand his position as a player because there's no question about the production that you're going to get from him. But when you start talking about that kind of money, it has to do with more than just production on the field. You have to be a leader in the locker room. You have to be a face of the franchise. And right now, I don't know that the Giants approve. Well, we know that the Giants don't approve publicly of the face that Odell has put forth for the Giants.
Yeah, look, I love Odell as a player. And I can overlook some of the earlier stuff, the boat trip and stuff like that. It didn't help that he didn't play well in that playoff game. But
neither did Sterling Shepard either.
Yeah,
he was on the boat trip with him
too. So some of that immaturity and things like even the squatting in the end zone, I mean, wasn't a good look. I can brush that off as immaturity. The video, what we think we saw in the video, is more than immaturity. So I have a problem with giving him huge money. You're talking about $60 million right now. I want to see him go out there off the injury, play well, play at your level, and show the maturity and the growth that you're not doing these types of things that end up on the back page. Now, it complicates it if he's not going to play, but I kind of feel like he'd be hurting himself because he's coming off injury. He's already viewed as, a problem. And so I think he has to go out there and play well. So if I'm the Giants, I'm probably sitting and waiting and not giving him a deal unless it's something I really like financially, or as you said, unless you put all types of incentives in there.
Listen, let me talk about the video for a second, because I didn't care about the boat trip. Eli Manning went on that boat. He was terrible in that playoff game.
No, Nick, that's not fair.
Okay,
that's not fair. That's not fair.
I did not. I'm just. I don't want to relitigate that.
Yeah.
I do not care about the boat trip. I didn't really care about the celebration in the end zone, to be totally honest with you. You can say it's distasteful. I don't really care. Here's the reason the video is in a separate category to a degree. Even though he thought he was in privacy, even though he thought he was, he wasn't out in public, he was in a hotel room, whatever it is. Here's what I know about people and being around drugs. The first time you're around someone doing cocaine, as that appears to be, man, you are on edge. You are, I don't even know if frightened's the right word, but you are hyper aware of everything going around you. You are not nonchalant enough to where someone.
You're on.
If you're just around it, if you're just in a room, I can count on 2 fingers how many times I've been in a room with cocaine, right? With someone doing that. College, right after college. Both times I was scared. Both times I was like, whoa, like where do I need to be here? What's going on?
And he wasn't?
Well, he was
not at all.
He was nonchalant enough that someone could record it and he didn't notice. So it's like if it is something that is not a part that this was a one-off, had never been in a room like that before, just got unlucky, man, it's logically that doesn't pass for me. So logically I feel like, listen, this guy who's living hard and fast and is around this type of stuff and putting himself in this position to get caught up the way he did, that is concerning. I understand why that would be concerning for the New York Giants. I also believe this. If you're not giving him his contract, you better trade him. Because if you're not giving him his contract, I do think he'll hold out. I do think he will become a legitimate problem. And I think, despite all that, he's earned his contract. He's the most productive wide receiver through 47 games in the history of the league, and he broke his leg playing for you. He has earned the deal. So you got to decide, as an organization, are we comfortable paying him? Because if you're not, then you should trade him. But if you are, then you can put in things in the deal to protect yourself. Void the guarantees and the failed drug test.
If he takes that, I'll do it. If he takes that, wide receiver, look, he's tremendous. He's arguably the most talented receiver in the league. But I'm going to be honest. I can win without a superstar wide receiver. Look at the top 4 teams in the league this year. New England, they won it without Gronk. Edelman was out this year. Minnesota, Adam Thielen's not on OBJ's level. Jacksonville. You can go down the line. And then I can talk about Larry Fitzgerald. How good were they? Calvin Johnson when he was in the league. A.J. Green, they didn't make the playoffs last 2 years. I don't need a superstar wide receiver.
Who's also going to be a distraction.
Exactly. I love him. Right. But if you're going to be a problem and if you demand a certain amount of money, I don't have to treat you like I treat the quarterback in terms of contract.
But the truth is the Giants would love to pay him. The Giants would love to have him on the team. He is a phenomenal once-in-a-lifetime wide receiver. But you said it. They don't want the embarrassment. They don't want to have to deal with being at the owner meetings and having just to deal with this. There's 1,000 other things to talk about. The draft is coming up, and what are they answering questions about? Odell. What are we talking about? A touchdown celebration. Video that surfaced. They want him to be better. They sat down with him. They called him into the owners yesterday. Last year they sat down. They said, we need you to really think about what you're doing. Try to control this a little more. Pat Shurmur talked to him this offseason. He has been spoken to. This isn't the first time it's come up. He just doesn't seem to either know what the right thing to do is or keep himself out of the situations, because if it was up to the Giants, I'm sure the only thing they want to do is have him there a long time.
And see, Jenna, you're absolutely right. The fact that they've already sat down and talked with him, and they made those meetings public in terms of having those meetings with him and telling him what the standard was going to be for playing for the Giants. And then you see the video come out this offseason. You continue to embarrass the organization, and it's a distraction, and there are questions that the owner just doesn't want to answer. And so it gets to a point where, although you have this kind of production on the field that's historic in respect to your position,
right,
like CB said, we can win without you. And I think the Giants are moving closer to that point with Odell because, Nick, you're right. He is the kind of person that's going to hold out, and it's going to be a distraction for your team. And while you're trying to reset the culture of your franchise with a new GM and a new head coach, I don't know that you need this on top of that. So I think the Giants have to make a decision definitively about Odell's future here in New York.
Chris, stick around. We're going to see you a bit later in the show. Coming up, though, is LeBron playing his way into the MVP conversation. Next on First Things First.
Yep.
Cavs next. Nick Wright was at this game. How exciting was that?
This was an unbelievable play. Broussard, you think this rivals the Jokic dunk?
Yeah, you know, the Jokic one was more ferocious. It went through with more force, but I kind of think this was better. He was up higher,
I said Jokic. I screwed you up. Nurkic. That's my fault.
You said Nurkic. I think he was up higher on this one. Plus, it was over two people. And unlike Nurkic, they made really strong efforts to try to block it.
That moving screen was the best play JR made all day. He had another rough one, did JR. Go get it, LeBron. Second dunk that I didn't think he was going to get to the rim.
Up in the air for like 3 minutes. More LeBron now. Of all the discussions, topics, angles, arguments we've had with regards to him, the one we haven't spent too much time discussing is one that might be in play after LeBron's insane recent stretch. Yesterday, he continued his dominant month. He scored 37 points to go along with 10 boards, 8 assists. And while James Harden appears to be the unanimous MVP winner, should we give pause to consider LeBron? Here's Cavs interim head coach Larry Drew.
Well, I mean, you just look at the stat sheet, and it's just not about points. You know, it's what he's doing on the boards, it's what he's doing from an assist standpoint. He's just a force. He's a force, and I mean, he has put up MVP numbers without a doubt.
I feel like LeBron, there could be a case made for LeBron just about every second of every day, even outside the basketball season. Should LeBron be in the MVP conversation, Chris?
Look, if I'm an official voter, and there's no criteria. You know, the NBA doesn't give you any list of how you should vote for MVP. I feel like in recent years, there is more of a consensus because because of technology now, we see all the games. We can read all the writers about the various teams. When you think about it, decades ago, you weren't seeing, you know, if you were in the East, you weren't seeing Kareem every night playing for the Lakers and things like that. So now I feel like there's more of a consensus, and that includes team success, not just your individual play. If you are a voter who believes I just have to give the MVP to the best player in the world.
That's not what MVP is.
Well, no, I mean, there's many different things. Like I said, to me, it's never been just who's the best player in the world.
Right.
Because Michael Jordan could have won it for a decade straight, and LeBron could win it for a decade straight. Neither one of them has been given that. So from what I view as MVP is a phenomenal individual season, coupled with great team success, unless there's some type of aberration like Russell Westbrook getting a triple-double last year. I have to go with James Harden. So I would say no to the question. I don't think there's an MVP discussion. I think James Harden is so far ahead of everybody else that he's number one. The discussion is who's number two, and that could be LeBron or Anthony Davis. But for number one, it's James Harden clearly to me.
All right, let's show LeBron versus Harden numbers for the year, because Harden has been the runaway leader throughout the season. And if you look at their numbers side by side, Harden's got him by 3 points in points per game. LeBron obviously averages more rebounds. Surprisingly, LeBron's even averaging more assists. And the field goal percentage is drastic, right? LeBron shooting 10% better from the field. Also, everyone agrees LeBron is the best player in the league. I think most people agree LeBron is the one player more than anybody else on a contender that if you remove him, they go from contender to not a playoff team. I think LeBron, so you can argue as far as value proposition, that's LeBron. I say all that to say this. James Harden's the MVP. Because the MVP, here, I'm not a voter. As infuriating as that is to me. As Chris Broussard said to me, I know.
You may be
as,
soon.
As Chris Broussard said to me once about a year ago, I was like, why do you get to be a voter and I don't? He's like, I don't know. I've covered the league for 25 years. Like, you go on TV and talk about LeBron. I was like, all right, good point, sir. Here's the reason it's got to be James Harden. Because the other thing the MVP is to me is a historical marker. We need to see who that season was about at times. And it is important when we are talking about the greats of the greats. The biggest knock on Dwayne Wade, like D-Wade versus Dirk Nowitzki historically, that's an interesting conversation. But you know why the tie goes to Dirk? He's got a league MVP. D-Wade never, I think he only finished in top 3 once. James Harden deserves an MVP. Like, he deserved it, I thought, 3 years ago.
Yep, I voted for him.
He had a strong argument last year. I know you voted for Russ last year. If Russ didn't have the triple-double.
And I mean, if Russ was 9.7.
Right. Which is why some people think it was crazy that he didn't win it last year. Harden deserves it. Harden's on the best team. He's been their best player. Everyone knows LeBron's the best player in the world. And amazingly, you can argue this month of March, LeBron is having the best month of his career. He's never averaged in a month more combined points, assists, and rebounds than he is this month. He also is going to win Eastern Conference Player of the Month every month of the year except for January, because he's going to win it again in March. He might average a triple-double again this month after going his entire career without averaging a triple-double until this past February. He's been extraordinary. But if I had a vote, I think it definitely should be James Harden. I disagree with you that there should be a contest for number 2. LeBron, to me, has clearly surpassed what Anthony Davis has done.
If you put up the numbers, Davis averaging more points, more rebounds. He has a better PER. Field goal percentage is virtually the same. He's at 54. LeBron's at 55. And his team's got about the same record in the West against tougher competition. You brought up a good point about historical relevance.
Markers.
The problem is, I agree with you, but it's skewed already. The fact that Steve Nash, who I voted for in those 2 years he won it, has 2 MVPs, and Shaq and Kobe only have 2 combined, is...
It's a shame on Shaq
crazy.
Deserved more.
Shaq deserved more. I think Kobe deserved more. But Kobe was the best player in the world at times.
Oh.
You know? Right there. I know you're Mr. Analytics.
I mean, the night he scored
Kobe
81,
Bryant, come on, man.
Don't
sleep on Kobe. Don't diss the Mamba.
Could trading Kyrie actually even good for the Cavs? It's next on First Things First.
You voted for Nash in 06?
Hey, finally, guys, the Kawhi Spurs drama continues. He still hasn't played, and the Spurs aren't thrilled about it. On Friday, Tony Parker said his own quad injury was, quote, 100 times worse than Kawhi's. Dem's fighting words.
Wow.
Nick, what do you make of Tony Parker's comments?
Those are shocking comments. As I put it on Twitter, that is Tony Parker off the top rope, right on Kawhi's head. And you don't hear this type of stuff from the Spurs. You now have a better idea as to why maybe that team meeting leaked, when typically those things don't leak from the Spurs. The Spurs are obviously perplexed at what's going on. And I understand that Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili have possibly slightly divergent objectives, incentives than Kawhi, because they're thinking this could be our last best chance to win a title. Like, Parker went from starter to bench player this year. Manu, I would be shocked if he comes back for another season. Like, hey, man, let's go try to win a title. And this was, by the way, before they knew the Warriors were going to be without Steph in the first round. That could be a first-round matchup, Warriors-Spurs. And I'm sure the Spurs feel...
With Kawhi, they gotta be feeling like they could beat them.
We can go do that, whether they're right or not. So I cannot speak for how Kawhi feels physically, obviously. But I am very confident in saying this. The Spurs organization as a whole thinks he should be playing. From the medical staff to the coaching staff to the players, maybe they're being unfair to him, but they clearly think he should be playing. And I can't ignore, Chris, the rumblings from before the year about maybe not being happy in San Antonio, definitely not being happy about the shoe contract, and now this slow lag of when is he coming back from a quad injury? The medical staff cleared him on a month ago.
Yeah, this is an incredible situation. Knowing Tony Parker, having talked to him, I don't know if this is a cultural barrier or what, but Tony is a straight shooter. Now, and these words are strong and they are harsh, and I don't disagree with your depiction of that's him going off the top rope like Jimmy Superfly Snuka, okay?
Yeah.
However, there's a small part of me, and not even small, there's a decent part of me that feels like Tony wasn't so much taking a shot at Kawhi as he was just giving his honest opinion. Like, it was the same injury essentially. His was viewed as worse by the doctors and medical staff, and so he's baffled that why Kawhi's not out there playing. Now, what I'll say about Kawhi, and you mentioned the rumblings about him not being happy there, I don't get any ulterior motive from Kawhi. Like, I don't understand what could be an ulterior motive. If it's money, you've got another year on your deal. The Spurs are the only team that can offer you the Supermax, 5 years, $219 million approximately. So if it's money, then you would want to stay in San Antonio and win there and get that Supermax contract. If it's winning, there's no need to leave. I don't want to hear, I can't believe he would think we can't get free agents. You got one of the biggest free agents in the last 5 years, which is LaMarcus Aldridge. The Knicks can't say that. The Lakers can't say that.
And you're on LeBron's list. Like, I don't think they're necessarily going to get LeBron.
The Spurs?
Yeah, Spurs.
I don't think it'd be great if he did.
But I'm saying, like, it's not like people discount them. They're not Milwaukee or Utah, where people are like, I am not signing there. Like,
it's a great history.
Right.
You got a coach that's won 5 rings, and I could argue at least the last 4, he never had the most talented team. So I don't get what the ulterior motive could be.
So what's the advice he's getting? So
well,
that's what I was going to ask you. What is your
medical doctors have not cleared him. And look.
Wait, we know that for a fact that his doctors have not cleared him?
The Spurs have cleared him.
Right. But
his own outside doctors have not cleared him. That's what Greg Popovich has said.
Yes.
Okay, so and I'm going to side with Kawhi somewhat hesitantly, but I do feel like everybody, you know your body better than anybody else. And Kawhi has always been a guy that he has to be 110% way before this injury. From the moment he got with the Spurs, he has not wanted to play through nagging pain and injuries, and that's fine, but I'm going to side with him, like I said, hesitantly.
It's hard for me to side with him, man. They have been so cautious with every player ever. They have been so... Greg Popovich invented DNP rest. He is the reason why the league had to come out and change one of the reasons, the back-to-backs and stuff, because they didn't want guys resting on national television. They punted on a chance to win a championship because they had Tim Duncan have a knee surgery he wanted to wait to have back in 2000 because they wanted his long-term health. Like... The Spurs, for me, have earned all of the benefit of the doubt. Kawhi's earned some benefit of the doubt as well, but the Spurs absolutely.
Here's the thing. Can I say this one thing? Boston, they're not, I wouldn't call them the Spurs, but they are a great organization. They sent Isaiah Thomas out there. I don't know if Kawhi's looking at this, but Isaiah Thomas played through a bad hip, was an inspirational story and all that last year. What do? They reward him by trading him. Now, whereas he could have got close to the max contract last summer, now or
it's
this summer.
Mid-level exception.
Yeah. And he's hurt again. The hip is out, hurt again. So that may be what Kawhi is looking at. And that's what I'm looking at when I say, look, no matter how good a sports organization is, their motivation may be different than the player's motivation.
And the question is, does this affect his long-term situation with the Spurs? I think at this point we'll have to discuss. But you talked about the Celtics. New topic now. They can't seem to catch a break with injuries, speaking of which. At this point, I think only Garrett Berg is healthy, and he's just a Celtics fan. The latest news, Kyrie Irving will miss 3 to 6 weeks after undergoing surgery to remove a tension wire in his left knee. That would literally give me tension. The playoffs start in less than 2 weeks with the Celtics all but locked into the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. Nick, is it possible the Cavs actually won the Kyrie trade now?
All right, so this is interesting because the day the trade happened, I think most people thought both teams did great. Like the Celtics got their superstar, the Cavs got a player that's 80% of Kyrie and Isaiah Thomas, plus the draft pick, plus Jay Crowder, who's going to be great for them in the playoffs. So right afterwards, it was like, hey, both teams won. Then about a month later, it was, okay, the Cavs still probably did well. They're playing great. They haven't even got IT back. But the Celtics did awesome. They're on this winning streak. They got Kyrie. Then IT comes back, and it all goes to hell. And it's like, oh, my God, the disastrous Kyrie trade for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But now we sit here, and here are the facts. Kyrie Irving might not play in the postseason this year. Like, that's on the board because the Celtics, without him, easily could be bounced in the first round.
Oh, yeah.
Kyrie Irving will be a free agent after next year. He has a player option, but you would imagine a guy like him will not pick up a player option, go get a max contract somewhere. The Sixers are coming. The Bucks are coming. We will see where the Celtics shake out in the hierarchy of the East and if Kyrie does or doesn't come back. We also now know some people thought, hey, the Nets don't have an incentive to tank. The Nets don't have their own pick. The Nets are going to be better. Well, as we sit here today, the Nets have the 6th worst record in basketball and are 2 games out of having the 3rd worst record in basketball. Also, Jay Crowder and Isaiah Thomas have turned into Larry Nance, Jordan Clarkson, and Rodney Hood. And lastly, I will add, unless we believe Kyrie's knee would have been healthier had he played in Cleveland, had that trade not happened, we would potentially be in a situation where, headed into what most people think is LeBron's last postseason in Cleveland, Kyrie Irving is being shut down with knee surgery. Imagine if he's still in the Cavs, because they don't have that depth. They don't have those guys. And what it is if Kyrie gets shut down. You're done as far as being a championship contender because LeBron and Love, plus then it'd be JR and Shump and whomever. So I say all that to say this. I don't think there is a winner as of yet, which is an enormous departure from where we were 2 months ago, where the Celtics were unanimous. Oh, my God, Kobe Altman got fleeced. What a disastrous trade. The Kyrie's knee thing appears to be a real thing, and we'll see how long he stays in Boston.
You made a great case. I thought this was just going to be an opportunity for you to rip Kyrie.
No. No. I'm not going to rip a guy for being hurt.
You made a great case. I was one of those that said when the trade was made, I thought it was good for both teams, great for both teams. I thought Cleveland won. Because to your point, I thought Isaiah, he's not Kyrie, but he's 80%, 85% of him. And you got Jay Crowder, who's going to help your defense and all that. And then all that was torn to shreds, okay? And then it looked like they got fleeced. But as it stands right now, you're right. We have to look at this and assume, had they not traded Kyrie, let's say scenario number 1, he plays. And then this injury rears its ugly head related to 2015 when he messed up his kneecap, and he's out. So now you're in trouble going into the postseason. But let's say there are other scenarios, which there were, because people were saying, well, you didn't have to trade him. Kyrie reportedly threatened to sit out and have surgery and not play all year. So what if that had happened? Or what if he just plays, but he's unhappy, he's a malcontent, there's all types of drama and problems in Cleveland, and that can mess up your season. So now Cleveland looks like it's in a pretty good place. It's not a bad trade for Boston because Kyrie Irving is tremendous. And what I'm told is that Danny Ainge, if it comes to a point where, yeah, Kyrie could play, but, you know, it could have some ramifications long term, then Danny Ainge will be like, he's done for this season. Let's sit him out and get him ready with Gordon Hayward coming back next year.
Opposite of what his approach was with Isaiah Thomas last year.
Yes, because they clearly see Kyrie as a part of their long-term plans, whereas we didn't know, but they didn't see Isaiah in that situation.
I think Kyrie most likely will sign a long-term extension with Boston. But I also think people have taken that for granted. I think let's keep in mind, when Kyrie initially requested a trade and listed the teams he would go to, Boston was not on that list. Now, he seems very happy in Boston, and they have given him, they've been really good. He's been really good. But the point that I want to put out there is, let's see how everything gels when Gordon Hayward comes back. Let's also see what Philly looks like next year, what Milwaukee looks like next year, and what this Nets pick turns into. What if the Cavs end up with Rodney Hood, Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance, and Marvin Bagley? You know what I mean? Then all of a sudden, and that's on the board.
There are a few players you could mention. Maybe Michael Porter Jr., who I know he didn't look good in his little 2 or 3 games he played in the tournament or in the postseason, but he's a top player. I don't want to say we know LeBron likes Trae Young.
Right. But you have to fall in but I mean, Luka Doncic, there's guys. And so it's just, we do this too often, and the shows like this are the number one, criminals on this regard. We're just the winners, losers of the draft the day after, of a trade the day after. This is fluid. The Kyrie thing seems set in stone. Come January 20th, it was like, oh, my God, the Cavs got fleeced. Let's see. We'll see where it is.
You know what's interesting? Boston is playing great without Kyrie. Not better, but their winning percentage with him, now granted, it's 60 games with him, 683. Their winning percentage without him, 13 games, which isn't a bad sample. They're 9-4, 692 winning percentage. And Terry Rozier looks like a freaking all-star when he ends up starting.
The Celtics MVP is Brad Stevens.
Shut him down.
Kyrie, I do think he should stay in Boston long term. Great coach.
All right, coming up, just how much will Steph's injury impact the Warriors' title chances? Next on First Things First.
Oh, my.
Back here on First Things First, Steph Curry returned to the court on Friday and then immediately left the court on Friday. Injured his knee. He'll be out at least the next 3 weeks with an MCL sprain. Same injury he suffered in the 2016 playoffs. Steve Kerr spoke last night on Steph's timetable to return.
No, there's no way he's playing the first round. And we also know that Steph has a history of coming back strong from injuries. So there's a good chance if all goes well, he comes back during the playoffs at some point, and we're at full steam.
Mentally, for me, staying positive, staying upbeat. Hopefully, I prove what Coach said wrong and put myself in a position to get back as soon as possible. But right now, who knows? Just try to do my job in the rehab process and get back as soon as I can.
All right, Chris, we talked about the Warriors being concerned, but getting knocked out in the first round, that's a different level of concern.
I wouldn't pick them to get knocked out of the first round, but I do think they should be very concerned because they're a totally different team without Steph Curry. That's reason number one. They play at a much slower rate. They win by a much smaller margin. They score far fewer points. Even with Kevin Durant, they play a whole different style. When Steph is not out there and the fluidity, all that movement is gone. And it is Kevin Durant making the plays and playing great, but making the plays. And they look like a lot of other teams where your one best player is the playmaker, he's the scorer, and all of that. And so I just will say they should be concerned because of that, and also because the competition in the West is stiff. They could get San Antonio with Kahwi Leonard. That's a big if for him to come back, but with Kahwi Leonard. They could get Minnesota with Jimmy Butler. They could get a New Orleans team that's been playing well, a Utah team that's been as hot as anyone in the second half of the season. I mean, Oklahoma City, which we know will be a highly emotional series. And I'll say this, too. You say, well, they still got 3 All-Stars. Most people, with all due respect to Draymond Green, who is tremendous and I think will be a Hall of Famer because of the success of this team and his importance to the team. Take him away from Steph Curry and the way they play with Steph, and he's not as impactful. Klay Thompson, who is tremendous. Again, I think he'll be a Hall of Famer. But take him away from Steph Curry, and I don't think he's as impactful because they play a whole different style and way. So I don't know that those two will be as good as they are without Steph as they are with him to give Durant the type of support he needs.
I mean, I feel for Draymond and Klay. They're just going to have to make do with just the second best player in the world as a teammate instead of the second and third best player. No, he's not the same playmaker. And while I agree Draymond's offense without Steph wouldn't be the same, I think Draymond's the best defensive player in the sport. I thought he should have won 3 consecutive Defensive Player of the Year awards. I know Kawhi won. He came in second 2 years in a row to Kawhi, and then he finally broke through last year and won it. Here's the thing. You got Kevin Durant. You have 2 other All-Stars, 2 other excellent role players, 2 other Hall of Famers in Klay and Draymond. To me, you have, without Steph, you have second best player, another top 15 guy, and another top 25 guy in Klay and Draymond. And you have home court. You got to go and win first round. We saw this team, by the way, with those 2 guys playing second and third role, with David West, Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston as your key role players, rotational centers. Instead of Zaza and JaVale, it was Andrew Bogut and Maurice Spates and Festus Ezeli, but it was rotational centers. We saw that team win a title and then win 73 games, be up 3-1 in the finals with Steph Curry in the role that now Kevin Durant's going to have to play. There is no excuse on Durant's end if they do not win in the first round. Now, if we find out Steph can't come back and they're in the Western Conference Finals and Steph's still not there, I will not blame Durant heavily if they lose to Houston because I think Houston's. Well, I mean, when I say blame,
but no,
my point is, whenever
it would be an indictment
loses,
to some degree.
Right. Whenever a team loses, even like I didn't blame LeBron heavily when they lost in the finals last year, but it's better to win. You know what I mean? And so, but Houston's awesome. So if they get to Houston and they don't have Steph and they lose, I understand it. But I want to say one other thing about this particular injury. Because all injuries in sports suck. And it's better if everyone's fully healthy, every team going into the playoffs, right? But that's never the case in the NBA. My big bet against the Warriors this year, my big concern on the Warriors was, man, at some point the injury luck's got to run out. They have had 3 years running, of spectacular injury luck with their opponents having what I would consider bad injury luck go against them. But the other point is this.
Remember, Steph had this injury, though, 2 years ago.
Steph had this injury 2 years ago, and in his first game back scored 17 points in overtime. And bellowed, I'm back. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, when LeBron shut him down in the finals, everyone's like, Steph wasn't 100%. Neither here nor there. My point is this.
It's here.
There is a reason the Warriors were able to sign Kevin Durant. Because Steph Curry was making $11 million. Why? Was he on a rookie deal? No. Why? Did people think he wasn't a star? No. Why was he making that little bit of money? Because the team was concerned about his long-term health, about his ankles, about if his body could hold up. The Warriors last year got the best of all worlds. They got the benefit of having a potentially injury-prone superstar because they got him on a cheap contract, allowed them to bring in the second-best player in the world. And then the whole reason they had got Steph on that contract, injury risk, he never got hurt again. The ankles were fine for you. At some point, that bill becomes due. At some point, the reason you were able to get Kevin Durant was because there was concern about Steph Curry's health. Well, listen, Steph's a great dude, and I feel badly that he's hurt, and it sucks to miss part of the playoffs. But this is the reason that you were able to sign Kevin Durant. The reason your job got so much easier is because the team was like, how healthy is he going to be? It's not shocking. It's not Gordon Hayward breaking his leg, right? When the Celtics, they had no reason to worry about that. Gordon Hayward breaking his leg is a freak thing out of nowhere that wrecks the season. Steph Curry getting hurt, when you sign him to his first extension because you're worried he might get hurt a lot, that's not shocking.
He had been healthy for, several years. As far as the ankles, they had really not been a concern. It was the MCL, which was a freak injury a couple years ago when he skidded on the floor against Houston.
Donatas Monteunas's sweat.
Yeah, exactly. But you getting mystical. That bill is due. And
I'm not saying it. I'm not using the word karma because that sounds like Steph deserved it. I'm not saying any of that. What I am saying is you mentioned he'd been healthy. That was doubling down on or splitting tens at the casino. Like, okay, you can do that, but you don't deserve to win that hand. Like the Warriors got Durant because Steph was on a cheap contract because of injury, and the guy never got hurt again.
Yep.
And this is a Warriors team that without Steph isn't going into the first round full strength. KD, Dre, and Clay are all coming off nagging injuries, are all not 100%. So you wonder if this sets up an opening for the Cavaliers to come in.
Look, this is what you said it. Injuries, you said always, I think. I'm going to say injuries oftentimes play a huge factor in championships. Golden State's first title. Kyrie and Kevin Love are out. They win the championship. Magic Johnson's last title. I don't know that they win that if Isaiah Thomas doesn't mess up his ankle in Game 6 and then he really can't do anything in Game 7.
Golden State title last year. Kawhi's injury.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Michael Jordan's first title. Byron Scott and James Worthy hampered throughout the series by injury. So these things happen, and this is why there's this narrative that's grown throughout the regular season that LeBron doesn't think he can win a championship, so he's trying to do these great things individually. I don't know if you ascribe to it, but these great things individually so that becomes his argument in the GOAT conversation with Michael Jordan. But I say, if you're the best player in the world, you never feel like you can't win it. And I think LeBron does have this mentality that you always have to be confident. He has got to be looking at this situation saying, man, they don't look full strength. Let me get there. Let me get there, and you never know what can happen. So I do think there's a good chance Cleveland should get through the East, I think, fairly easily. But they should get through the East, and then you never know. What if you face Houston? Because I think Houston, it might be 50-50 right now. With all the injuries in the West.
Houston v. Golden State.
With Golden State. Yeah, 50-50 Houston, Golden State. If Houston gets there, LeBron James is looking at two stars who've never been on that stage, who have had their issues in the clutch in the playoff moments, a coach who's had issues in the playoffs as well. He's got to be ultra confident then. He's got to be ultra confident against Golden State, if that hamper Golden State. So I hope that's LeBron's mentality that, look, let's get there, and then I'll carry us home.
And it's also nice, if you're the Cavs, to have the one star in this league that you know doesn't get hurt. Yeah. Top 7 players in the league. Top amazing. 7 players in the league. 6 of them have been injured this year. Giannis, the Brow, KD, Steph, Harden. I'm leaving somebody out. Kawhi. They've all been injured this year. This guy's never missed a playoff game.
We can keep going.
Go down the list of guys missing time this
Careful,
year.
we're getting so close to a jinx. I know you don't believe in it, but
I don't believe in jinxes, and this guy's not getting hurt.
He's trying to throw one.
I mean, honestly, is there something wood to knock on?
It's amazing. The guy's never missed a playoff game, and he took a couple weeks off his first year back in Cleveland to work on some maintenance, but it's never been like LeBron James out with a twisted ankle or a torn hamstring. And so the position they're in is, here's what the Cavs know, and it's what, I feel like I've known all year. The reason that I've never wavered. They will be in the finals, and they will have the best player in the finals. We'll see who they're playing. We'll see how beat up they are. We'll see how Houston's playing, Golden State, if Portland shocks the world. But what we've known for the last 8 years, is LeBron will be in the finals, and his team will have the best player. Always going to have a shot.
I was trying to save you, LeBron, but no. I was trying to help you.
He'll be healthy.
Coming up, can the Cowboys keep pace with the rest of the NFC? It's next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, Chris Kenny is back with us. Nice to see you, Chris.
We're still rolling. Still rolling.
Nope.
Is that a dap?
Pie new pie.
Talk about the Dallas Cowboys, Chris Kenny. You see that look I get all day.
You make it so awkward, Jenna.
How did I do that? I was just asking.
Is that a dap?
My shoulders did not come down.
I don't know. I live in a cave except to go to the gym, so I can't see what regular greetings are.
Keep going. Keep going.
Last time I was here, she didn't know who Bow Wow was.
Okay, guys. Every day is a learning process. The Cowboys signed former Jaguar wide receiver Allen Hurns to a 2-year deal over the weekend. Hurns had 39 catches for 484 yards in 2017 in just 10 games. Back in 2015, he had over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. Chris, first of all, you're right. It's the awkwardness with which I asked the question, and I'm going to definitely self-correct. That's not going to happen again. Number two, thank you. Are the Cowboys doing enough to keep up with the rest of the NFC East with this signing?
Well, Jenna, they're doing what they can because they have some salary cap issues, and they had to franchise tag DeMarcus Lawrence to keep him going to the open market. So with what they have going on with their team dynamics, they did as much as they could to add a vertical threat to their receiving core because they don't have a speed guy that can take the top off of the defense. So Dez Bryant is not that receiver anymore. Terrence Williams isn't that guy. Cole Beasley is quicker than fast. So they needed somebody that had some deep speed, and Allen Hurns brings that to the table. You said it, 2 years removed from a 1,000-yard receiving season with 10 touchdowns. So I like the addition of Allen Hurns to this group. I wouldn't say that they're not going to continue to add to this group. I think that there's a possibility that they could add to it in the draft early. But they have to do something to add to the receiving core because they got to get Dak Prescott back on track.
Right. What you said there is the key. What is my evaluation of the Cowboys this year? How good's Dak going to be? To me, they have a league average defense. They got a star in DeMarcus Lawrence. They have a really good linebacker in Sean Lee that you can pencil in for 10 or 11 games. They have an adequate secondary. Like I don't look at the Cowboys defense and say it's going to win them games. I don't think it's going to lose them a bunch of games. I think it is just a replacement level league average defense. It's going to be about their offense, right? Yep. We know they've got a great offensive line. We know they have a great running back. Question is, can they score enough points through the vertical passing game to be a true threat to compete in one of the toughest divisions in football, a division that obviously has a defending Super Bowl champion and a team that we know is going to be better than it was last year in the Giants, and a team that feels correctly or incorrectly, they got better at quarterback in Washington with Kirk Cousins, Alex Smith. So that's where they're at. So what do you believe in Dak Prescott? Going into this past year, I thought Dak Prescott was the best young quarterback in football. I really did. I thought The Cowboys' success was more Dak than Zeke from 2 years ago. I thought the way he controlled the offense, the way he took care of the football was elite, the level of which I hadn't seen from a rookie quarterback in a very long time. And then this past year, I saw him look worse than I would have thought he was going to look as a rookie. I saw him look totally reliant on his running game. So how good do you think Dak is? That's the question. Like, yeah, Allen Hurns helps, and maybe he'll take some reps from Cole Beasley in the slot, and maybe Dez will have a bit of a bounce back. None of it's going to matter if Dak Prescott does not get back to at least fringe Pro Bowl level. That's, to me, the only question. I hate to just make it about the quarterback, but to me, that's the only question that matters for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, to answer the question, can they compete in the East? Yeah, I think they've done enough. I mean, number one, you're getting Ezekiel Elliott presumably for 16 games. That's number one. Sean Lee, you said 10 or 11 games. I mean, presumably you get him for 16. I know he gets injured a lot, but if they're healthy, now you added a receiver, a competent receiver for Dak Prescott. And I'm looking at the division. The Eagles, obviously a great team, but now they're going to have a much tougher schedule, the first-place schedule. They lost LeGarrette Blount. You know, let's just see what happens there. I agree, Alex Smith, slightly better than Kirk Cousins, but still, is Washington going to be a world beater? I don't know. We'll see. The Giants, they're definitely going to be better than 3-13, but how good? Let's see. I mean, a lot of it is on the draft, and that may take a couple years to show its, you know, the rewards from that. So, yeah, I expect Dallas to compete for the championship of this division, or at very least a wild card spot in the playoffs.
I don't want to be completely dismissive of the Giants or the Redskins, but to me, the NFC East is a two-horse race with the Eagles and the Cowboys. Those groups are clearly better, and they have the best offensive lines in that division. And we saw that the offensive line makes such a big difference in the NFL in terms of a team's success. You look at the conference, the New Orleans Saints, they improved their offensive line. They were a playoff team. The Minnesota Vikings, they improved their offensive line. They were a playoff team. To me, this goes back to, okay, you needed to add weapons for your quarterback who's on a rookie deal, so you want to be able to capitalize on being able to put the supporting cast around him. But it's also about having an offensive line that's in place to protect your young
That's
quarterback.
why Dak Prescott had that phenomenal year he did, because he had the time and he had that line in front of him. Do you think it'll come down to what Nick said? Is it going to be which Dak Prescott do we see coming into this year, and could that really make or break the Cowboys season?
Well, I think it's going to be the health of the offensive line in that running game, because we see that Dak Prescott is a different quarterback when he's behind the sticks. When it's second and long, third and long, he's not as efficient. But when you have a running back like Ezekiel Elliott that's able to get 1,000 yards from scrimmage on runs on first down, that's what happened 2 years ago his rookie year. That's the difference in how the Cowboys can have success. That's their formula. You don't want to put too much on Dak Prescott now. Like I said, Nick, last week, he's not a volume passer at this point in his progression in his career. He hasn't gotten to that point. So in order to be able to accent the things that he does well, they had to bring in another target, somebody that can stretch the field for that team and being able to get that separation vertically from the defense.
I'm going to say one thing in defense of Allen Hurns, why he might actually be a better signing than most people think, but more value than just $6 million a year over $12 million over 2 years, $6 million a year. We've seen what's happened to wide receivers. Take basically all of the Broncos' weapons. With Peyton Manning, without Peyton Manning, right? Julius Thomas, oh my God, he's one of the best tight ends in football. Signs a free agent contract. No longer has Peyton Manning thrown to him. Falls off. Same thing happened to Demaryius Thomas, to a lesser extent Emmanuel Sanders. I wonder if the opposite happens to guys when they go from Blake Bortles to good quarterbacks, right? You know what I mean? Like,
That's a fair question.
Hurns,
That's a fair question.
If Allen Hurns, if actually he could have been far better. Like, I'm not watching enough Jacksonville film to figure out is he running open, and Bortles, I would assume, is just missing him a lot. Yeah. And so Dak, even if Dak is the Dak from last year, it will be the best quarterback Allen Hurns has ever played with. So in that regard, the Cowboys might have gotten some good value there.
That's a good point. Chris, thanks so much for hanging out with us
Great
today.
job for having me, guys.
Have a good radio show.
I'm going to talk about it. Coming up, is LeBron James playing his way into the MVP conversation? Talk about that next on First Things First. The Nets and a 33-year-old guy named LeBron.
Let me tell a story about this real quick, because the best part about this play was right after the play. This was almost in the first quarter. At the next play, with .2 left, LeBron gets called for a foul to end the quarter. He goes to the ref. You could see it from where I was sitting. Says to him, "I swear on my grandmother's grave I didn't touch him." Like, yo, LeBron, we're taking this awful serious for a first quarter against the Nets, bro.
He's intense. Look, Nick, we were talking earlier. I do think that was better than the dunk on Yusef Nurkic.
Wow.
It was on two people. It looks to me like he got up higher. He was able to do the Statue of Liberty. Oh,
wow.
That was ridiculous.
That and the Nurkic dunk, I didn't think he was going to get there.
Yeah, he left from far out, that's for sure.
Time now for In or Out. LeBron James kept up his insane month of March yesterday in a win over the Nets. This month he's averaging over 31 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists. Broussard, you in or out on LeBron being able to pass Harden for MVP?
I'm out. I mean, this is over. There's no MVP discussion. It's James Harden. The only question or discussion is, will it be unanimous? We'll see. Probably not, but I think he's got a chance. But no, I think for LeBron, it's who finishes second. Is it LeBron James or is it Anthony Davis? I think you can make a strong case for either. Obviously, the argument against LeBron is the team's record in the Eastern Conference, which is not strong, and they could even finish 5th. I doubt it, but they're 3rd right now. But, no, he can't surpass Harden.
It's amazing. The best player ever is having statistically the best month of his career.
You just say that matter-of-factly.
Because it's a matter of fact. But he's having the best month of his career following statistically, correct, offensively, the best offensive month of his career, following statistically what was the best month of his career in February. He is going to have won at the end of March 4 of the 5 Player of the Month awards given out in the East this year. And I totally agree with you. I'm out. Like, James Harden's your MVP. Now, I don't have a ballot. You do. If you don't put LeBron James' name second on the ballot, you and I are going to have to talk. But no, this is the year of James Harden. He's the story of the season. The Rockets are the story of the season. Harden has a strong argument. He should have already won 2 of these things. If I had a vote, I would be voting for James Harden. So,
interesting thing about LeBron, he's had 4 MVPs. Mm-hmm. He led the league in PER every one of those years with over 30. Mm-hmm. This year he's 3rd.
Right.
He's like 28.
Harden's I think the only guy over 30 this year.
All right, moving on to the 76ers. Philly clinched a playoff berth with a win over the T-Wolves yesterday. Call the process fully trusted. But how much playoff success can they possibly have? Nick, you in or out on the Sixers as a threat to reach the Eastern Conference Finals?
To reach the Eastern Conference Finals, I am in. This is the one team that I think Cleveland would rather play Toronto than play Philly. Purely because nobody has an answer in the East for Joel Embiid. Cleveland certainly doesn't have an answer for Joel Embiid. And right now, if the playoffs were to start today, Philly would get Indiana in round 1 and Toronto in round 2. Could they win those 2 series? Absolutely they could. I'm definitely in on this.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm in on this. Since December?
Since Christmas.
I'm sorry, since Christmas, they have the 3rd best record in the NBA.
That's
not
amazing.
in the East, in the NBA. And if you calculate it, Joel Embiid's missed 11 games. They're 3-8 in those games. When he plays, they're on a 50-plus win pace.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure that number is even higher after Christmas.
Yeah.
So look, I've said it, and I know some people will say it's premature. I'm willing to say it. If Embiid and Simmons stay healthy, they are all-time greats.
But how big of an if is that?
All-time greats?
All-time greats.
Wow.
All-time greats.
But that's
You're looking
a
at
huge if.
Not as much with
Not
Simmons.
As much for
not
Simmons.
at all.
For
But
Embiid's been healthy.
And I wouldn't say huge if anymore. I think it's an if. But Embiid's been healthy this year, so hopefully
That's amazing.
Western Conference now. Steph Curry is out at least 3 weeks with an MCL sprain. Steve Kerr said he's definitely not playing the first round of the playoffs. Chris, you in or out on the Warriors being a lock to win the first round without Steph?
If lock is 100%, and I'm going to say it's 100% for this conversation, then I'm out. I'll favor them. I'd be surprised if they lose in the first round, but you could get San Antonio with Kahwi Leonard. You could get Minnesota with Jimmy Butler. You could get a Utah team. You're going to get one of these teams. OKC. You could get them without Steph. Oh, my goodness. So, yeah, I'm giving somebody a decent chance against them without Steph, but no, they're not a lock.
Listen, they still got Kevin Durant, right? They still got Klay Thompson, right?
Yes.
They still got Draymond Green. Steve Kerr's healthy this year. Andre Iguodala's still coming off the bench. What about Sean Livingston? Of course I'm in on this. If you can't, listen, if the Warriors with home court, if they lose in the first round of the playoffs because Steph's not there, I'm going to have to totally reevaluate how I look at Kevin Durant. I'm not prepared to totally reevaluate the way I look at Kevin Durant. They will have the best player on the court and the best second option and the best third option and home court. Like, I can't. No matter who they play, they should be a heavy favorite. Like, I'm not. If they play
OKC, they don't necessarily have the best second option. George?
It's right? Close. Fair enough. But their number one option's far better than OKC's.
What about San Antonio if Kawhi's there?
Well, listen.
LaMarcus Aldridge?
Listen. I'm not doing it.
You coming to my side.
Finally, to the NCAA tournament now, Villanova advanced to the Final Four yesterday. They have won their 4 tournament games by an average of 18 points. Chris Broussard, you were in or out on Villanova being the favorite to win it all against the field?
I'm out. I don't see how we can pick any one team as definitive at this point. I mean, with all that's happened in the NCAA tournament, I wouldn't be surprised if either of these 4 teams won it. So I'm going to take the field.
I would rather take Villanova over the field at this point. I was not ready to say that last weekend because there were too many teams left. Villanova had 2 more games. I think Villanova is far better than Kansas, and whoever's coming out on the left side of the bracket, I think Villanova is better than. Jay Wright's going to win his 2nd title in 3 years, as will Jalen Brunson, that veteran-laden team with some star freshmen. I like Villanova from the beginning of the year. I like them right now. I will take them for the first time all tournament. I will take Nova over the entire field.
Good stuff right there. Coming up. Hey, did the refs cost Duke a trip to the Final Four, speaking of the tournament?
Yes.
Next on First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long, everyone.